tomorrow.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for February 22nd, 2018. Tonight, first on the agenda, we have the responsibility of executing the 2018 annual town meeting warrant. What this means is that we have before us the proposed warrant articles in the order that we have all talked about, and so it's going to give us an opportunity to share a little bit about how we're feeling about some of the articles and to discuss a reordering of two articles since we were last at the Selectmen's meeting. Should I kick that off? Do you
Why
both
don't you?
mind? Okay.
Sure.
We had originally talked about two Carroll Community Center articles, one about the boilers and one about some additional improvements. They were two articles, and what we have opted to do is to divide them so that Article 11 is the maintenance article about replacing the boilers at Carroll Community Center, is now, as I said, in the position of Article 11. We will then have a few other articles to discuss at the meeting, at the town meeting, and when we get to number 15, that will be the consideration for the town meeting about additional improvements to be made to Carroll Community Center. So I did want to point that out. It made sense to all of us, and I won't speak for my colleagues, but it made sense, certainly to me, to address the necessity of replacing 90-year-old boilers in order to keep this building occupied and in use. Then further down through the meeting, if we want to discuss a little more openly the possibility of making some additional improvements, it would be controls for the boilers, it would be some ADA improvements, and it would also be then some, once that work has begun, to think about how we're going to dress up the halls. Those are questions that we are putting into an improvements warrant article in the 15th position. So I would, with that, would love to open it to my colleagues. Anything you would like to talk about Carroll Community Center, those two warrant articles, what you're hearing, what you're thinking. We're not voting tonight on our position, but it is perhaps helpful to all of you at home to hear a little bit about how we're feeling, what we're thinking about.
So I can kick it off. I am the liaison to capital budgets, so we've been spending a lot of time on this. I really believe there's going to be support at capital budgets for breaking this out into two warrant articles. As the process has played itself out, and I was fortunate enough to be in attendance at the one meeting that we had at the Carroll Community Center. There were a lot of great questions from new people in town. Some of us that were part of the initial Carroll Community Center study. It seems like yesterday to us, but it was 15 years ago, and they're new faces in town, and they had a lot of questions that were addressed then that they seemed to want answers to and wanted to be able to revisit. So splitting those two articles out, I think, is imperative, because we do have two very separate things. We have the boilers, which are going to make potentially being able to keep that building open an imperative item, and then looking at what could a renovation be, what do the people of Dover want from that renovation, and that was eye-opening to me. I did not expect that kind of discussion, which I thought was really a really good discussion then at that meeting. We also got a lot of information about how that building's used, for park and rec programs, as well as how the C of A's using it. And both those organizations made presentations, which was also helpful. My concern regarding bundling it all together and listening to the exchange and deliberation at capital budget was that, because of all the new questions that are coming up as part of this process, I wasn't sure there was support and everybody did recognize how critical the boilers are. So I think, I'm not saying there is support for both, but I think breaking it out makes the discussion a lot easier. And I think even breaking it out, capital budget is going to be looking for some additional information really targeted towards the boilers. And I know Mr. Ramsey and Carl are coming to our meeting on Monday, and we're going to continue with those discussions.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much, Mrs. Hunter.
I agree, Madam Chair, with Robin's assessment. We'll have just gone through a series of 30 or 40 line items at that time. So for those of you watching at home, at that point in time during town meeting is the point in time where we go through about $30 million of our $38 million budget. And so everything that we're going through, line item after line item after line item, are all in keeping with the maintenance of Carroll. It's our job to make sure that the building is functional, so I think that's a great spot for it. And I agree wholeheartedly with the assessment. And it then gives everybody the ability to weigh in, all of the constituents, all of the parties, all of the folks who are using it, every group that's involved. So we will have had the ability to listen on 4 different open meetings to exactly what people want. So I think by that time, we'll know exactly how the town is going to proceed this, and then vote accordingly.
Right, and I don't know if you were taken by surprise, but I was taken by surprise at that meeting. I think it was 2 weeks ago now, at the open forum, about some of those comments. And then there were people that were reminding us about other issues and were wondering if those had been addressed as well. So you had both ends of the spectrum. You had longtime residents of Dover who wanted to make sure that certain maintenance issues had already been addressed, or were questioning whether they were part of what's now the 3.4 million. So it was, I thought it was a really good meeting, and it gave you lots of food for thought, and it did make me think that we do have 2 very separate issues here, and it would be unfortunate to muddy the waters.
Agreed.
By commingling them.
Yeah.
I know that was our plan, but I think in light of the new information that's come, as the process has played itself out, I wholeheartedly agree with this decision.
Weren't you impressed with the number of different stakeholders or groups that saw themselves as a stakeholder in this discussion?
And how many people were at the meeting? And I know, this is a big issue for the town, and it's been a big issue for the town for 15 years. And I know there's another informational meeting scheduled for the 28th, I believe. And I encourage people, citizens, to go onto the website, to read all the material that's there. There's a lot of material, there's a lot of things that have been done over the last 15 years, and to attend the meetings and to talk to their neighbors, because we want the decision that gets made to be a decision that's representative of Dover as a community today, and not be made by special interest groups.
I think that's a great point. And I think it's important for us all to remember one of the data points that has come out in the course of this last fall has been that we have 20,000 individual trips through that building in the course of the year. That is greatly in use,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it affects so many people, and this is a very important part. The other piece I wanted to say is that this meeting on the 28th came up quite organically. When Townsend had suggested that perhaps she could gather together a group of parents who would enjoy hearing the position from Kathy Weld and from myself. and it was going to be a smaller group just presenting kind of anecdotally to parents, and then because there seemed to be more and more interest, the decision was made to go ahead and move it back to the library in Carroll Community Center for Wednesday evening. So that is how that meeting has come to be. And as you said, Robin, I'd love to invite anyone and everyone to come, because it's not only a beautiful meeting room, but it's a great opportunity to hear sort of the plans behind both of these two warrant articles, as well as an opportunity to hear the questions, field the questions, answer some of the questions that we can, and we welcome everyone.
Maybe ask questions that we haven't heard yet.
That's
so we can-
exactly right. Nothing would surprise me.
Right.
That's right.
And now that we're giving the weekend update version of the meeting, Wednesday, 7 o'clock,
Is it
is it 7?
at Carroll Community?
Carroll Community Center
Right,
Library.
Right, exactly.
7 o'clock, is that right? I
Pretty
think.
sure.
I'm sure it's on the website.
Right, I was
Yeah.
just going to say, check the website, I think it.
But it's been, this is one of those occasions where I like social media because I'm part of the next door. And, people are,
Yes.
you get an invite, so you really do realize what people are thinking in
That's right.
town, and you can choose to respond or not to respond, but you know what people are talking about, what your neighbors are talking about.
It's wonderful, excellent.
So Madam Chair.
Another article, any other article you'd like?
No,
to
I was just,
discuss?
in going down the list, you have Article 11 that discusses the Carroll Community Center, the replacing, the maintenance. Article 12, the Board of Health, which is the study, the hydrology study request. And keeping in line with what we were just going through, the discussion we were just having, it's one more item of concern for a lot of people. It impacts a lot of people. We're very interested to hear from as many people as we can about this, to see exactly what people are thinking about this particular warrant article. I think it's going to be a great opportunity at open meeting for us to hear from all of these various constituents as to how they feel.
Right, and just as the historian on the Board of Selectmen, I was, the whole concept of water and looking at water and understanding the aquifer really came to light when we started looking at various options for 46 Springdale. And at that time, the Selectmen felt it was important to have a committee that would really focus on looking at it. There was a lot of anecdotal evidence around. We had some longtime residents of Dover tell us about, brooks that used to be gushing. Even the brook actually on 46 Springdale, how it was much more active than it was today. And not only those, but then questions came up as to how much water is there in Dover to support potentially, future development? And the Board of Health has taken this committee, and I think it's the Board of Health, and run with it. And they've been able to pull together professionals that do this for a living. And, personally, I'm in favor of planning. I'm all about planning. I'd rather have data than anecdotal data. And so from what I understand about the study, it does seem like a lot of money, but it will give us the ability to monitor the groundwater and determine whether or not we do have an issue or what the impact might be as Dover expands as a community.
I like the word impact because you've got Article 11, Article 12, 13, and 14 all have strategic impact in their
Right.
DNA.
Right.
So we are, as the board, looking for guidance and for direction from the town as to how they feel about these things. But as Robin said, more data is better than less data. More options are better than fewer options. And one of the things, Madam Chair, that I remember when you did the walkthrough of 46 Springdale, and then we put the map on, the overlay map, subdividing that property, gave us, the town, the ability to maintain the water supply. The water that was the well behind 46 Springdale.
what I think we're referring to is the recharge.
Yes.
By keeping the meadow
Yes,
intact
exactly.
and putting it under the control of Conservation Commission.
Right.
We assured the recharge of that part of the aquifer from that extensive meadow.
Yeah, with Article 11, Article 12, Article 13, Article 4, the plastic bag to a certain extent. It's, these articles deal with strategic impact and how we, as a town, get to monitor, measure, determine, and how we view these impact.
And just to complicate the situation, because
Why
I
not?
think that this is also a part of the discussion that's important to remember, is that some people are convinced that we have a water shortage problem in Dover, and there are people in Dover who are not aware of that, don't believe that, aren't seeing any evidence of that themselves. And so we have to remember and balance this a little bit, that while I do agree that a baseline of information and data can always be helpful, if something becomes a problem in the future, sometimes also it's important to remember that it's hard to justify paying large sums of money to check out something that is as of yet not a problem.
Right.
So we just have to be aware that there is that other side of it as we're looking towards.
Right, and we have to be cognizant that, with global warming, something that some people believe is here, going to stay and going to impact us, and others don't. It's the same thing. We need to be respectful of others' opinions.
We also have people who have wells on their property. We have people, myself, who get their water from Colonial.
Right.
And we have to also understand that Colonial's wells are drawing from the aquifer that a lot of the residents who have their own wells. So it's a complex process. It's a complex process, it's a complex warrant article, but it's no less important, certainly as you both articulated, no more important than any of the other articles. I think what we're referring to tonight, Madam Chair, the order of the article is perfect, and I think that we're going to get the opportunity to have a lot of discussion very quickly, early in the evening, and to the townspeople, arrive at town meeting, so we can have a quorum and get this.
And there's also going to be an opportunity at the Warrant Committee hearing, which I would encourage
The 19th of
citizens,
March.
on the 19th of March, to come and listen, because groups are going to be making presentations to the Warrant Committee. Like, for instance, I don't know much about the plastic bag bylaw change. I think I know what it's all about, but, so I'd be interested in learning more about that.
I'm very proud of this one because it's my next door neighbor.
So you know a lot about that.
She and
Okay.
her best friend are the two who are putting forth this article. So
Okay.
it would be wonderful. We'll have an opportunity to hear them at open hearing and then again at town meeting. They'll both be 18 in time to be a part of these meetings, which would be wonderful.
So if I understand this, is this using the plastic shopping bags?
Talking about our retail stores in Dover would shift from plastic to paper.
So it is, so I.
Yes.
Okay, and a number of communities have done that.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Natick.
Right,
Natick.
and Wellesley, I believe, has
Did they do
done
really?
it right.
I think Concord did it as well, but then they also went ahead and they banned the individual sale of plastic bottles, water bottles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's, so the,
Don't quote me on that.
yeah. So essentially, Articles 11, 12, 13, 14. The 15 would be the second part of the Carroll community,
Well, it's a separate.
separate.
It's separate.
Separate article.
But addresses some additional needs to the.
The larger
one-
picture.
Right, one is a need.
A need, and the other is
Is.
a
Well, I was going
desire,
to say, one is essential, we believe, to keeping the building open.
a maintenance issue.
Absolutely. Anything else that you would like to give updates for, from long-range planning or from Capital,
No, I think the rest are standard.
okay?
They are. The only thing that I haven't heard a lot about, and I know that the Board of Health is going to be presenting at our open meeting, is the marijuana article, the Article 22, the operation of a marijuana establishment, and that, I think, is just a simple bylaw.
Right, and I don't know who the presentation, we haven't determined yet about the presentation. I was kind of thinking if we might ask Chief McGowan if he wouldn't mind
Okay,
presenting on
that's-
that. I don't know, I mean, we can discuss that later on.
Right.
I know the Board of Health stepped up to me and was interested in co-sponsoring the article with
Okay.
us, but I don't know that we really need to determine tonight who's going to present on that.
No. No.
And the rest are just,
David.
well, I guess there's a bylaw change from the planning board.
A change to the wireless communications bylaw.
Okay. Do we know? What does it do?
I should know, but I'm not
Okay.
prepared to speak today.
All right.
And I think it's possible that sometime in the next month, the Historical Commission may decide to come before us and explain about their proposed Article 13. And so I will leave
Oh,
that.
that would be very helpful. Right.
The way I understood that, Madam Chair, is that the way the current article stands is there's a 1-year moratorium on raising a building, a historical building. A building of historical context.
And that means it was built prior to 1929?
1930.
30.
So-
Okay. Close.
Right, you're right. And they're proposing now, I believe, a 50-year roving age. So you would take 2018, and you would go back and you would say any home built prior to 1968 would then be subject to the review by a historical commission. And again, I think that they will do justice to this bylaw
Okay.
change suggestion, but that's the very big difference from the 20s to say 68 and before.
Actually, it's much larger inventory.
Correct, and it moves.
Yeah.
Right.
But the point that I think I understand is they believe that there are many homes built between 1929 and, say, in this case, 1968, that would be of historical value to the town of Dover. And so they would like the opportunity, I believe, to weigh in on this. So we'll let them do a little.
Have other towns done something similar?
It's a very, very good question, we can ask them when they come.
Okay.
I'm glad this only addresses buildings and not people, because I was built between 1929 and 1968. I wouldn't want to be under review for demolition.
Or have a moratorium.
Or a moratorium, exactly. Oh, my goodness. So I think that would be very helpful. The rest are just
Standard.
standard.
Good. Well, thank you all. I really
This was
appreciate the
helpful.
discussion because it brings us all up to date. As you all know, we discuss these things publicly, and it's helpful to me to hear what my colleagues are thinking, and hopefully it's helpful for all of you at home as well. So
And it gives us the opportunity to report back on
That's right.
on some of what we've learned,
That's
being members of other committees.
I would entertain a motion to execute.
I move, Madam Chair, that we accept the...
Execute.
To execute the positions of the warrants, the article numbers of the warrants.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve the fiscal year 19 Selectmen's budget number 602, which is for Minuteman Vocational School. Do I have any questions or comments? This is all very much determined by the vote by the town 2 years ago to stay in Minuteman. And so each year at this time, we are given the budget for the coming year. And so I would entertain, if there are no questions about it, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, just a brief comment before I'll make the motion, but each year in town meeting, someone stands up and says, you know, we only have 1 student, 2 students, 3 students that attend Minuteman. And I think that Minuteman is a great value. I think it's a great resource for the region. I think it allows students the opportunity to get a vocational education. You never know where the student is going to come from, if it's going to be a freshman, a sophomore, if it's a 9th grader that's going to do all 4 years there. I do know that from the standpoint of a resource, that it looks like it's a lot of money on the surface, but when you take into account how much the region spends on education and how much we spend on individual education plans for kids who go outside of the system, it's actually a really good value, and it's something I think that I'm proud to support.
I love that. In fact, I would echo that, and I would say what we are buying is opportunity.
Opportunity, exactly.
The other
Well said.
opportunity that is part of this is that they've broken ground for their new school. This beautiful new facility is going to be an asset not only for the Minuteman district, but for all of the participating communities in this area who are members at the Minuteman district. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity.
I also
It's really going to
would
be a
like,
state-of-the-art
Oh, it is.
technology
Absolutely.
school, and that's, you know, and that, the night, what Minuteman provides is it not only provides certain students to evaluate whether trades are the right thing for them or not, but it also gives those students that may be very science-oriented the opportunity to experience what it's like as a employee or member of the science community. And, you know, many students go on to have very, very successful trade careers. It's a skill that we need in this economy.
It is.
And there's students that go on to top-notch
Colleges.
universities.
That's right, absolutely.
Right.
I think we should also,
So it's just for students whose brain works a little bit differently.
I think we should also thank Ford Spalding.
Oh, right.
You know, Ford has put a tremendous amount of time, energy, effort.
Should be the Spalding.
They probably do have a fundraising arm at some point in time, and I think we might have just dropped the
Even maybe the auditorium.
That's right, that's right.
Chip Spalding Rotunda, you know, Ford Spalding. And also, Madam Chair, I move that we accept do we have to even mention the amount? I just move that we accept the budgeted amount for the region for the Minuteman Vocational.
Excellent. Do I hear a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. Thank you. Mr. Ramsey, would you be willing to speak to the intergovernmental agreement?
See, we should have done this first, then we could have said that we were dismissing one or the other.
That's right. This is what has become the annual intergovernmental agreement between the regions Sherburne and Dover that allows Sherburne and Dover to choose which method of funding for capital expenses of the region.
Wonderful. Are there any questions from both of you?
No, so I guess we should just let the audience know that the total cost of the capital project for the year is $510,000, of which Dover's share is 56.6%, or $288,711.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunter, that's very helpful. And that proportion is based on the proportion of students that we
Correct,
have.
correct.
So each year, that proportion is determined or redetermined
Right,
based on...
that's correct.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. So I would accept a motion.
Move that we approve or accept the intergovernmental agreement in our proportionate amount.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that's great. So I would ask you both, is there any additional other business that we have not covered on our agenda?
Just one license that we have to
Well, that's on
approve.
the agenda.
That's on the agenda. Just one license.
One lonely
One
license.
lonely license. It is a wedding. It is a wedding, Madam Chair, that we potentially could get invited to. We've never been invited to any weddings. Feeling very left out. Would you like to cover that at this point? A May 19th, 2018 wedding at Hale Reservation.
Oh, how beautiful.
There's a,
that would be.
yeah,
Hopefully they have a beautiful day.
I hope so too. It'd be wonderful.
yeah.
So
That's the only one.
Right, so I make a motion to accept the special license at Hale Reservation on May 19th.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
So where on Hale?
That's what I
The
was.
wedding?
Well, they
Is it-
have that lodge, so I'm wondering if it's in there.
Well,
Is
they
it-
have that beautiful new pavilion on the membership beach. I wonder, well, the membership beach is across Noannet Pond, but then the one on the beautiful new beach that they built, the tier beach, has the pavilion at the top, I wonder.
But isn't that technically Westwood?
Oh, interesting point, Mr. Jeffries. You're right, the power lines constitute the line between Dover and...
We should charge Westwood.
That's very interesting. There are some very beautiful buildings close to
side.
Grossman's.
Yeah.
So that's where I was thinking.
It must
Yeah,
be.
You know, they have these very nice rustic buildings.
Right.
Mr. Ramsey, would you volunteer
To go to the wedding.
down to attend the wedding, just to make sure we know it's in the right place?
That the license we provided is actually,
Oh, it's been a long day,
For
Madam Chair.
Dover.
I
no, that's a good point.
apologize.
I'm gonna go look at, I didn't realize
I
they
think
did
there
that
are
on the
two-
membership.
yeah, there are two
Okay, I'm gonna go
beautiful,
look.
well, and also these two beautiful contemporary buildings that are up above Grossman's camp.
Those are new.
Right.
Those are new, like,
So it makes me wonder if that's where they're...
I think those are either the Scouts or they're the Grossman buildings.
Oh, are they? All right.
Those are beautiful.
They're beautiful. I wonder if
I
that's
should, I should
where...
walk through there, because you
Right.
can do it now, it's just in the summer.
Come ride with us, Robin.
I don't do bicycle right now. But thanks for the invite, John.
Oh, I have another idea. On the road, when you leave Powasset Pond and you walk towards Noannet Pond, you cross over the road and you remember the very beautiful building where they use for school gatherings?
Yes.
They have an outside picnic facility.
Right.
My Aussie always finds some crab legs that she can munch on, so they have good goods. I wonder if that's the facility for weddings.
Maybe.
Because that would be beautiful, and that is still Dover.
Yeah.
Before you come to the
I
power
know
lines.
exactly what you mean,
You
that
know,
is, right.
It's beautiful, beautiful. Oh, it's such a beautiful place.
It is.
Oh, my God.
We're so fortunate to have all this open space around
Oh,
here.
my golly. Excellent. We are to the point of, we have an empty audience
I was
tonight,
just
so
gonna
I don't think we have a lot of citizens' comments. But I would move on to the accepting of the minutes. We have the open session meeting minutes from February 8th. And this was a quick meeting because we moved on into executive session
Right.
to work around collective bargaining. Some questions about that. So I would accept a motion on accepting the minutes for February 8th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Mrs.
DeShilo,
DeShilo.
thank you very much. And the executive session, we have minutes from that. We conducted that meeting immediately following this meeting, again, around collective bargaining.
And those looked fine to me, too.
Wonderful.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Sure, love it.
I'll make a motion to accept the executive session meeting minutes of February the 8th.
Thank you.
Seconded, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Again,
Mrs. DeShilo,
Thank you very much.
fabulous job.
Oh, Mr. Jeffries, your name's on them.
I get to sign. That's all I get to do. I just,
But it's a good team.
It's a great team.
Yeah, it's a great team. Well, thank you all, and I appreciate you reminding us. Let us say again, we have this meeting on Carroll Community Center next Wednesday. Check the website for the time, whether it's 7 or 7:30. It will be in the library at Carroll Community Center. We welcome anyone and everyone. We have coming up on the 12th, we have the caucus. We have on the 19th, the open hearing,
Right.
which is run by Warrant. We're hoping that's a big turnout because of all these warrant articles will be shared and vetted and questioned and hopefully answered. And then we are marching along. Our annual town meeting is May 7th.
It'll be here before you know it.
It will. It will be here very quickly.
And just like yesterday, it's gonna be 70 degrees.
I agree. I thought it was quite around the corner.
It's snowing tonight.
It's
snowing.
That's right.
That's why
Doing well.
there's nobody here.
Well, it's also school vacation.
It's also school vacation.
I would like to say before we close in gratitude to Mrs. Pugach and to you, Mr. Ramsey, and to you, Mrs. DeShillo, for all of the readying of these warrant articles and bringing this all to the table for us to have the pleasure of reviewing and sharing and voting on. So thank you. It's a tremendous amount of work to bring us to this point.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like much, but.
Oh, it's incredible. And it's everyone waits for it. All of the committees are eager to see the narratives around the warrant articles. So this is a very important document. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would take a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you.